Music critics make me really angry. Music critics have been around for a while, and the number one thing I hear when people are talking about music critics is just how bad they are. And I would have to agree, for the most part. More specifically, people like Anthony Fantano, who is probably the internet's biggest music critic out there right now, at least, in terms of individuals who are music critics. There are other online music critics like Pitchfork, that are a group that do a bunch of music rating and stuff, and they also suck. And they're worse than anything else out there in terms of music ratings and stuff, but we'll get into that later. Before we start, I would like you to like and subscribe if you like the video, and we'll get straight into it. So, the thing that I've always found interesting about music critics is that I don't understand why people give so much power to these people when taking into account their opinions of music, because what makes their opinion better than anyone else's in terms of, like, what's good music and what's not? And I've always found that weird that music critics have so much, like, they have so much leverage when it comes to what music is good or not in terms of, like, ratings and reviews and stuff like that. Because who gave them that credibility in the first place? Is it just because they know music better than the average person? I would disagree, but just because they've listened to a lot of music doesn't mean they have more knowledge and more credibility when it comes to what's good music or not. And what my opinion is of why people get so much credibility is because they start out with ratings so similar to other rating platforms and other music critics that them having the same opinion somehow validates their own, because they have the same rating credibility as more credible music critic platform, music critic person, whatever. And then once they build that following or build that credibility by having the same opinions as these credited music rating companies, that's when they can release their own opinions that might differ from the norm of music ratings and all that stuff. Now, I'm not saying that all music critics are wrong and that all opinions of music are just wrong, because obviously that's just not true. But I feel like we give so much power to these music critics and these music rating platforms that it's hard to determine when they're actually right or not. Now, obviously, there's times when they're just flat out wrong. I'll put an example right here. You can look at that and let me know what you feel about that. But there are other times when someone like Anthony Fantano puts out a review and gives a album a super high score or super low score, and the internet just gets outraged because of it, and they're just so upset because this one person thinks that this album is this good or this album is this bad, when the rest of the internet thinks it's not. And I feel like the thing that makes them higher, I guess, in terms of what their ratings mean, is because they don't really debate anybody about this. They don't talk to and debate other music critics about what the album rating should be or what the music rating should be. It's just based on their own opinion. And this one music critic might have an album as like a 9 out of 10 or a 9.5 out of 10. And then this other music critic might have it at like a 5 or a 6. And you're just like, well, who do I trust more? Who do I have to recognize as a better score? And that's where I really have a hard time actually, like, understanding and believing all these music critics. Because if you can have such a big difference in what you think a good album is, how credible does that make you? Because one critic could have a completely different opinion about this album than another music critic, and about their entire music, the entire music industry as a whole. They might have a completely different opinion about what they like, what they don't like, and what's good music and what's bad music. So who is more credible in that way? And it's really up to the viewer who they think is a more credible music critic in terms of what they think aligns most with their opinion, which, in my opinion, makes me feel like, well, why can't I be a music critic? If you can have this opinion and I have the same opinion, how does that make you any more credible than me if we had the same opinion on it? And for the most part, we have the same opinion on a lot of projects and a lot of music. Why are you so much more credible than me when it comes to what is good music and what's bad music? Because if I like the same stuff as you, how are we totally different in terms of what we think is good music? Now, one of the things that I hate the most when talking to people that listen to music a lot and that love music, when we talk about music, or I'm debating someone like online about music or something, and they say, oh, well, Pitchfork rated this, and Anthony Fantano rated this. And it's like, okay, like that means absolutely nothing to me. In my opinion, that means absolutely nothing. That means you are taking somebody else's opinion about what they think is good music and making it your own just because they rated it higher than I would rate it. How does that make your opinion any more credible than my opinion? Like, you're taking one guy's rating of an album and saying, this is the reason that it's a better album or it's a higher rating than what you think it is. How does that make any sense whatsoever? Because I could be like, hey, my friend, he's got 20 followers on Instagram. He rated it a 10 out of 10. That means it's a 10 out of 10 because this one guy said it was. No, that's stupid. Just because Anthony Fantano rated it a 9 out of 10 doesn't mean it's a 9 out of 10. His opinion has some level of credibility. Sure, whatever. He's a music critic. Music critics are always going to have some level of credibility, even though I don't think they should. But how does his opinion make my opinion and my friend's opinion bad just because he said it was good? Like, how does this... What's the disconnect here? Because if one person's opinion is this music is so good and one person's opinion is this music is so bad, who's right? Because if you say that the music critic is right, so what? Like, you're taking somebody else's opinion and using it as fact, which is, I feel like, what a lot of people do on the internet and when debating music, is they take someone's opinion and they try to make it as the only opinion that there could be, the only fact that this music is good, this music is bad, because of this one person's opinion. Which is just downright wrong. Like, it's just stupid. I'm sorry, but it's stupid. If you're going to hold that much praise for this one person's opinion on music, then you should not be debating anybody on music, because if it's not your own opinion, then it doesn't matter. I'm sorry. It doesn't matter if it's not your own opinion. And another group of people that I hate are the ones that use music critics' opinions as fact when their opinion aligns with theirs, but when it doesn't, then they'll dog on the music critic because it doesn't align with what you think, which is just total hypocrisy, and it just doesn't make any sense. If you find this source so credible when it comes to what you want, then shouldn't it be the same when it's not your opinion? Shouldn't that override your opinion? Since obviously you find this person's opinion to be way more credible than yours, because if you're using it as evidence that this album is good or bad, then if it differs from that, then you're wrong, apparently, according to your logic, which doesn't make any sense. Just because someone says it's this and you think it's this, cool, you have two different opinions. That's life. Life is not based on who thinks something is good and who thinks something is bad when you have the opposite opinion. It's based on whatever you want, whatever you like. That's what ultimately matters, is if you like the music or not. Who cares what they think? Who cares what they rated the album? Because sometimes they're wrong. They're just flat out wrong. Pitchfork especially. I don't know what they're doing over there, what they're smoking, but I think sometimes they just rate their albums based on how they feel that day, or how good the was that they just took a hit off of, but they're just wrong. I'm sorry. Sometimes I'm just baffled at how wrong they are. And that might be my opinion. Somebody might say, "Oh, they always get it right. They're this credible corporation that just rates music. And so obviously how can they be wrong?" They're wrong all the time. I'm sorry. Everybody's wrong all the time. But that's my opinion, is that they're wrong. So why trust me? Trust the corporation. I just wanted to release this video just because I said a little bit in my last video about how I don't like music critics, and so I wanted to expand on that a little more and tell y'all why I don't like music critics and why I don't trust them at all. I'm not saying that I hate music critics and that I don't follow them. I follow Anthony Fantano. I follow the NFR podcast. I think it's entertaining. I think it's interesting to see their opinions on things, but I don't take their opinions as fact. That's just not what I do. I'm a free thinker, and I think what I want. If I like an album, I like an album. If I don't like it, I don't like it. I don't care what they think. I'm going to listen to what I want to listen to, regardless of what they rated the album. And if your friends tell you, "How are you listening to that? Anthony Fantano rated it a 2 out of 10. But you like the music? Go ahead, listen to the music. Who cares? I'm sorry, but if your friends are telling you not to listen to music because Anthony Fantano rated it something, whatever, get new friends. They obviously need help because they're so focused on this one guy that has one opinion when they're not focused on their opinion, even though they're one person with one opinion. So they basically are equals in terms of who has leverage of a rating. Anyways, I hope y'all enjoyed this video. I enjoyed ranting for a little while. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.